get started with day 2. If you made it this far, then that's awesome, all right? We're just doing the best we can. And some people had questions on the previous lesson, and send me an email, ask me questions. But at the end of the day, if you're practicing this stuff now, we're going to get back into school at some point, and that's when I will go back over all this stuff, and that's when I'm hoping other teachers will do the same and really just go through all this with you. So if you're getting the main points, if what I'm doing is maybe like mostly making sense or partially making sense, that's good enough. Okay, nothing takes the place of having that interaction with a teacher and being involved in this stuff. I'm hoping this is like almost that, but close, or as close as I can make it. But it's tough, you know, because students ask really good questions in class, and I kind of miss out on that, you know. I can't even tell jokes and have people laugh at them. It's like I'm talking here to myself, which is kind of weird. But I will throw in some jokes in just a minute, because there were some students of mine that actually asked, they said, hey dude, why can't you put in a couple of jokes just to make this a little better? So I guess I'll throw them in throughout the lesson. That way I keep your attention hopefully for more than like 6 seconds. Okay, when you're doing these problems, you know, we're really looking to solve this guy. What does the book say? It says factor. Okay, some books will say factor completely. And really what they're looking for you to do is to reverse FOIL this thing. So if I were to FOIL it, oops, O-I-L, that's bad. If I were to FOIL this thing, could I bring myself back to that initial trinomial that I have here? And so first I need to get my factors for that number in the back, okay? And what numbers make a 20? Well, I have 20 and 1. 10 and 2, 5 and 4, and I think that's about it. So now that I have the factors, I got to say to myself, what two numbers, when multiplied together, make a 20? Well, I know it's that because I did it. And then when I add them together, or combine them, I guess I should say, make a 9. And so 20 and 1, there's no way. 10 and 2, there's no way. But a 5 and a 4 can possibly make a 9. And I want to leave that kind of open, because depending on other things here, like we might need to manipulate whether these are positive 5s or negative 5s, positive 4, negative 4. We might need to change some stuff. But for now, we're just adding these guys together. So in the beginning, whoops, maybe I'll edit that out of my video, or not, whatever. We got x and x, and then I know this is add, so I know these are plus. And that's just a rule when it comes to like multiplying numbers. If you multiply two positive numbers, you get another positive answer. And so now I just need to fill those guys in, 5 and 4. Okay, that's not too bad. And so if I put the 5 here and the 4 here, that's good enough for me. I don't care what order they're in. I want you getting the main ideas of this stuff. And honestly, there's no reason as to why the 4 can't go here and the 5 goes there, or whatever. Now, once you've busted this guy apart and you've come up with your two binomials, if you have time, I recommend you go back and just FOIL it and make sure that your numbers work. Now, most of the time they do, but every once in a while you kind of catch yourself. You're like, oh, that's right. I should have done this versus this versus this, or whatever, okay? So if we FOIL it, you know, we get x squared, and then on the outside we get 4x, inside we get 5x, and last we get 20. We combine like terms and we get a 9x in the middle, and we're all set. Now, again, I know I went pretty fast on the FOIL method, but we've passed that in our school year. So if you haven't seen that a lot, maybe go back. I have a whole series called Practical Math on YouTube, and you can go back and look at all those videos, or you could just rewatch this until you go, okay, I got it. So we have our information here. I have my two binomials. I would say just circle this as your answer. Good to go. All right, let's move on to the next one. Hopefully you guys are getting outside, doing some fun stuff, or at least a little bit. You know, we're not on complete lockdown yet. But I did hear that, you know, Finland, of all countries, they closed their borders. And so you know what that means, right? It means that no one will be crossing the finish line. Okay. I'm kind of laughing to myself. Maybe you didn't think that was that great, but I'm trying, right? This is math. Honestly, when I teach math in class, like I do tell a lot of stories and jokes because some of this is kind of boring. I tell people how like when I was your age, I couldn't do this stuff. This stuff made no sense to me. So at least if the teacher did something reasonably funny, I was like, all right, well, I can hang out in that class for a little while. Okay. So anyways, moving right along. Next problem here, I need what are my factors of a 12? Well, I got 12 and 1, 4 and 3, 6 and 2. I think that's about it. And now our book, I should say, is going to write this out in a different way. They're going to have you write it out like this, where you have your two factors, and then they're going to have, well, what do those add up to combine to make? Okay, so a 12 and a 1 makes a 13, a 4 and a 3 makes a 7, 6 and a 2 makes an 8. And their hope by having you kind of like tile it like this as the two numbers is that you look at them and go, oh, these two make this number, therefore that's what I'll be working with. And so it is, it's helpful. I don't know. I just make the little caret here and then write all my factors, but tomato, tomato, okay? If that's better for you, then write them out like this, like the book does, and then just write your answers, your sums over here, and then figure out which one it is. Okay, and let's see here. So let me draw my binomials. I have an x in the front, and now I have a positive in the back, but a negative in the middle. And this is where you just need to be careful. A negative, let's see here, a negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times positive is positive. And then we have positive times negative, which is negative. Now, because I'm going to be multiplying, let me write this out right here. Because I have my method here that I'm going to use to kind of like check my work when I factor this thing and then go forwards again, I know I'm going to have a positive in the back. So whatever number is going to make this last value, I have to have two things that are going to make a positive value. So I can't have a plus and a minus in the middle of these two binomials. I either have to have a minus and a minus or a plus and a plus. Now, I need to look at it again and say, well, what does the middle number have? This guy has a negative sign in front of it. So therefore, that tells me these are both going to be negatives. And if that part didn't make sense, then maybe just rewatch or watch how I solve this. You're always more than welcome to move ahead and do all of these, because right now we're really focusing in this kind of a time on main ideas. Okay, so if you're doing the work, if you're practicing this with me, even if you remotely remember this stuff when we get back together at some point, that's awesome, okay? I can totally work with that. So at least if you're trying these guys, that's great. Now, at any time, I always encourage students, stop the video, work on the rest of these, they're right there. Stop the video and do these ones on your own and see what you get. Let me plug in my numbers here. Let's see. Oh, we agreed it was 6 and 2, because 6 and 2 makes an 8. So I'm just going to plug in a 6 and a 2, and then I want to see what happens. So let me multiply these guys out. I know this is an x squared. Outside is going to be a negative 2x. Inside, negative 6x. Last, negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. So that's where I'm hoping you start to see that the negative times a negative gives me the positive. And then we have these two negatives in the middle. And when we combine them, we do get a negative 8x. And that's my trinomial right there, right? That's what's mirrored up here on the top. I always recommend go back over these, foil the problem, especially if you're doing this on a test or something and you have that extra second to check your work. I say double check your work, foil the problem as if you were given this, and then see what you get. Now, if you're not sure on the FOIL method, I do have other videos, like I've been saying. I have a whole series called Practical Math where I go through this stuff. So don't think that this is like the last chance you'll get to see this, okay? There's other ways for you to gather all this information. All right, so now we're 2 problems out of our 6, so that's not too bad. I was going to tell another joke, but I don't know how well that first one went. And I guess, you know what? If you guys have one that you think is better, why don't you send it to me? And maybe I'll share it on one of these videos or something. That could be actually kind of fun, just to get a little bit of participant in, I guess, what would it be? Student participation. Okay, let's move on to the next guy here. X squared plus 2x minus 15. Well, I know I'm making it into two binomials. I'm going to bust this thing apart. What numbers make a 15? 15 and 1. How about 5 and 3? Like I said, our book is going to have you make this into a T-chart like that, and then add these together, and then be stuck, okay? But what happens if I do 5 and negative 3? 5 and negative 3 is going to make a 2. And so this is where, you know, for some people's brains, it is kind of nice to make this chart like that, because you can, you know, reverse the numbers. You can make one a positive, one a negative, but whatever's going to work best for you, honestly. And there's some telltale signs in the actual problem. The first one is, okay, I got a plus sign here and a minus sign here. And I know that a negative times a negative is positive. So it can't be negative, negative. It can't be positive, positive, because I'm going to end up with a negative 15. So it's got to be a plus and a minus situation in these two binomials. And so now it's a matter of filling in those values. For some people, they don't even need to put this here and go 8, I'm stuck. They, you know, for some people, they're like 5 and 3, right? I can add those, subtract those, rearrange them, do all kinds of stuff, and put them in different orders and just kind of play with them in these boxes and then see what happens. So I'm going to plug in my 5 here. Why? Because this is a positive 5. Over here, I have a negative 3, right? And now I think I'm good. You know, I could FOIL it and check it. I get x squared plus, minus 3x plus 5x minus 15. And this is going to give me a 2x in the middle. So I know I'm good. And so again, I know I'm going kind of quick on the FOIL method, but we're really trying to focus on this part now, because eventually we got to take this to the next level. And I know you're going, oh, great, there's more. Of course, man, there's always more. For now, though, we're just going to focus on these back numbers, and eventually we're going to add stuff to the front as well. But that's not for another lesson, so just kind of, you know, hang out and enjoy this stuff. So let me erase that guy and keep on moving through these problems. So, you know, we've been stuck in this house for a long time, all these days. And, you know, my wife and I, we've been talking about all these like random things just because you kind of run out of stuff to talk about at times. And she was telling me how she hates revolving doors and how she's afraid at some point that she's going to get stuck in one. And so I told her, I said, you know what? Don't worry. You'll get around. Or I guess I should say, the more of the actual joke would be, you'll come around someday. Okay, I guess that was kind of bad. I kind of blew the joke, but whatever. Or some people will say, like, don't worry, you'll come around eventually. Get it? Eventually? No? Okay. I don't know, man. I'm just talking to myself doing some math. That's all I know. X squared plus 6x equals 27. All right, let's do this guy here. Now, the minute you see equal signs, now we're solving these problems, okay? Sometimes it'll say factor. This book, I was trying to look and see what it said. This guy says solve the equation by factoring. But honestly, a lot of books are just going to say solve. Which I kind of like, because that kind of opens up the floodgates as to like, dude, you solve this guy any way you want. All right, let's see here. So I have my problem here. I need to use that zero product property that we talked about last time. I need to move everything to one side. I can't work on a problem like this because there's too much going on. I can't square root both sides. I'll get all kinds of crazy numbers. The easiest, most efficient way to do this is just to move everything over to one side of this equal sign, and then just leave a big fat 0 over there. So I have x squared plus 6x minus 27 equals 0. Now, if you want, pause the video. You should be off to the races factoring this problem. So I'm going to look over here. I got 27. What makes a 27? 27 and 1. 9 times 3 is 27. And I always encourage students, as you're making these factors, start looking at them and going, what numbers could I combine to make that middle part? All right, well, looks like it's going to be these two guys. And is it a plus minus? Is it a minus minus? I don't know. Well, my back number here is a negative, and my middle number is a positive. So this guy doesn't matter so much, as this is really a telltale sign, because I know in order to get a negative when I multiply two values, it's going to have to be a plus and a minus inside these two brackets, or parentheses, or whatever you guys call them. X and X, let's see here. And then, okay, now I need a positive 6. So is it a plus 9 minus 3, plus 3 minus 9? I know one of them's got to be a plus and one of them's got to be a minus. So the choice I would make would be a plus 9 minus 3. Let's FOIL it and see why. I get x squared in the front. Outside would give me a negative 3x. Inside would give me a plus 9x. Back would give me a negative 27. All right, now let me combine the middle. And this is why I knew that it was a plus 9 and a minus 3. Because negative 3x plus 9x, negative 3 plus 9 is positive 6x. And that's what I was looking for in this problem. If I had switched these, which again is why when you're learning this stuff, I always say, take a second and, FOIL these problems and see what you get. Because if you FOIL it and you end up with the wrong middle value, the back's always going to be right because you picked the numbers to make that value. But if you do the middle wrong, or if you multiply it out and you get it wrong, then I did it backwards. This guy needs to be the minus, not minus. This guy needs to be the plus. It's worth it to go back and check. Now, once I'm done with this, now it was being asked to solve. And so let me erase this. I've checked my work, but I do have one extra step. And that step is going to ask me to take this problem and solve for 0, right? And we did this in the last lesson. What number could I plug in? Let's switch to green. What number could I plug in here or here to make this equal to 0? What plus 9 is equal to, makes a 0? Well, negative 9. Negative 9 plus 9 is 0. That's awesome. What number here, minus 3, would make a 0? It would be 3. This gets back to that zero product property. So the actual answer, because it did say to solve by factoring, is going to be, let me erase a little bit of that. We got x equals negative 9 and 3. And as I said before, those two values are important because now we're finding the roots of a quadratic situation or a parabola, right? We have a situation where something goes up and comes down, or the opposite, and it's crossing through the x-axis at 2 points here. And these are called the roots. And so these values here signify where this parabola crosses the x-axis. Now, we're not there yet, but I always like talking about stuff in the future because I don't like students going, where am I going to ever use this? I mean, that's very hypothetical, but it's like, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? I'm like, dude, I don't know. But with stuff like this, I can actually say, well, we need to understand this because we're going to apply it to other things in the upcoming chapters. It does matter that you understand how I broke this thing apart and what these values mean. This part down here, if you're understanding this, that's awesome, okay? You're like way ahead of the game. If it just kind of makes sense how I just said it, then even that's okay. My thought is that by at least seeing some of this, you'll go, okay, I get where this is headed, and I would be able to continue on in this guy's class. Which isn't too tough, actually. I don't know. I guess if you ask my students, they'll be like, this class is so hard. But, it's new. Right? This is not easy, man. I tell people, like, I couldn't even do this stuff when I was your age. But, eventually I learned it. And it wasn't pretty, but I got through it. Now, when you're given problems backwards in the wrong order, I personally, and again, this is personal preference, my brain makes me look at it only one way. And so for me, it's a lot easier to figure this guy out by just rewriting it in the order that is comfortable for me. The only thing you have to be careful with, and I say this all the time in class, and here's my dot making skills, is you need to take whatever sign or symbol that's in front of the value that you have needs to go with it. So therefore what I'm saying is I have plus x squared. So this is a positive x squared. I have a negative 10x. This is a negative 24. It's very common as a teacher for me to see people reorder this thing and forget to bring signs with the numbers. And that's why I always do the dots. Now, you might think that's the silliest thing I've ever seen, but if it works, then who cares, right? This is your math. This is not your neighbor sitting next to you. This is not other people's math. It's yours. And so I always encourage people to do what's going to help you be successful with your problems on your test. And if this is going to help, then do it. Some books will, do it like this, and then they'll factor it backwards and have the number in the front, the X in the back. That's totally okay. But for me, it's a lot easier to reorder it and then do my work. What numbers make a 24 here? I got 24 and 1. I got 6 and 4. I got 12 and 2. 8 and 3. I got a whole bunch. And in our book, they're going to encourage you to draw that T sign thing right there. I was going to say symbol, but I guess it's more of a thing. And then look at all your values and say, which ones could make a 10? This one's kind of tricky because I got 6 and 4, which could make a 10. I got 12 and 2, which could make a 10. And the other ones are just kind of out. But now I got to remember, well, this one's a negative and this one's a negative. Now, the fact that the back one is a negative means that I'm going to have a plus minus, right? We've already been talking about that, and I need you to start seeing that quicker, okay? And so it's going to happen the more you practice these problems. So I know I'm going to have a plus value and a minus value, and I know they need to equal 10. And so I could just sit here and start plugging all of them in. And in the interest of time, that's what I would do in class is I would try them all backwards on purpose and see what we get. And I draw that version 3 different ways and see which one is finally going to make it. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to go to the one that works. 6 and 4 will make a 10, but the problem is if I have a plus 6 and a minus 4, when I go to combine those, when I FOIL this thing to check it, I'm going to get a 2, right? Because I'd have a plus 6 and a minus 4. If I do a plus 4 minus 6, now I have a negative 2. That ain't going to work either. So I have to use 12 and 2. And I want it to be a negative 10, so I'm going to put the 2 in the front and the 12 in the back. Let's see what happens when I FOIL it. I don't even think I wrote FOIL last time. That's okay. So I have x squared. Outside is going to give me a negative 12x. Inside is going to give me a positive 2x. And last, positive 2, negative 12, negative 24. This is the key part. And again, if you've already paused this video and you've worked through all these and now you're just checking with me, that's totally okay. Negative 12x combined with a positive 2x will give me a negative 10x. And that is what I have in the original problem. So like I said, I would go step by step. I would find my factors. Some people are just good at this. They'll look at this and go, dude, I can already tell it's not 6 and 4. It's got to be these two. But it really is up to you, okay? Some are going to want you to make a chart. Some are like I said, I just draw them all out and then I just start playing with them and try which one's going to work best. And so for now, I would just kind of go with what you think is going to work for you. And always just remember this little thing down here, right? Multiply, and you have a plus, plus, minus, plus, all that stuff. And I always tell students, you know what, write this down. Have this next to you on a test or a piece of paper just to remind yourselves that What's in the back? A negative. Okay, boom. I know this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. So therefore it has to be plus minus inside the two binomials. Find what works for you. I'm all about efficiency with this stuff. I don't want you doing like these roundabout ways that don't make sense. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, we did that so we could teach you a lesson like that. Those days are done. You know, we need to find good ways of doing these problems. And we need to find ways that are going to be consistent for you guys so that you can use them every time. They'll always work and it makes sense for you. Okay, the next one here, I got another one. This one's all jumbled up. Y squared minus 90 equals 13y. So once again, move everything to one side. All right, could I move this guy over? Yeah, you can. But for now, let's keep the y squareds positive because it just makes things a little bit easier. I'm going to move everything to the left and figure it out from there. Y squared. Now I'm moving over the 13y, right? Minus 13y. So it's going to be a negative on this side. Negative 13y minus 90 equals 0. Zero product property on this guy. The last one didn't even have an equal sign, so that was kind of nice. All I had to do was just write out my factor, my binomials, and I was done. Okay, let's see here. What do I got? Equals 0. What numbers make a 90? And this is honestly where the problems are just going to get more complicated only because the numbers get bigger. It's the same process. So what makes a 90? 90 and 1, 45 and 2. I don't know, 15 and something. Let me take a little sneak peek here and see if I can get some numbers here that might work. 15 and, what was that, 15, 30, 60, 90, what's that, 4? Or is that more than that? I don't know. That one ain't going to work. I know that because that's not going to make a 13 either. Let's see here. And this is where, if you're not good with this stuff, just use a calculator and start coming up with your factors. So just use your you'll hopefully see right there. See how I did like a 1 and this, 2 and this. So take 90 and divide it by 3. And 90 divided by 3 is, I don't know, some big number, 30. And 4 doesn't work, but 5 does. Because 5 times 18 makes a 90. And that's kind of weird. Like, I didn't think that, this is what we would have to do. But again, hopefully you have a calculator and you can just work through all these values. So just use your calculator and just start with the 1, 2, 3, 4. If it doesn't work, if you get a decimal, move on to the next one. Try 5, try 6, and just double check. Now we are looking for two numbers that are going to make a 13. So I stopped here because I already noticed, 18 and 5. It's a minus in the back, minus in the middle. So I know it's a plus minus situation. Oops. And now it's a matter of filling in all this stuff. So I have, let's see here, I have 18 and 5. It's a negative 13. So the negative 18, or the 18 is going to go in the back. Because when I FOIL this, I'll get x squared minus 18x plus 5x minus 90 equals 0. I needed that 18 in the back because I need it to be a minus 18. So when I combine like terms, I get a negative 13. Oh, these are y's, sorry. Here, I'll make a y, whatever. It's all the same. And I'll get a negative 13y in the middle. Okay. Now this one did say to solve. So I'll look at this original problem up here. What number goes in this spot? Something plus 5 equals 0. This would be a negative 5. Something minus 18 is going to be equal to 0. That one's going to be an 18. Remember, those are the roots. Those are the answers that we're looking for. And now we're almost ready to kind of take this to the next step. All right, so I think I went through a good amount of problems here. I'm going to check in with you guys. Send me some jokes. Send me some more comments. If you do have questions, take a picture of what you're doing because it's really hard for me to kind of visualize in your what you're trying to say sometimes. And so if I see a picture of hey Josh, here's what I did. I worked through it and I got stuck here, then I can go, oh, I see what you're doing. Or even better if you want to just take a big old picture of like all the problems you did, because I had someone say, like, I tried a bunch of them and I didn't get any of them right. Well, then let me look at all of it as like the big picture and go, okay, on every problem you didn't do this. And if you had done that, you would have gotten all of these correct. Okay, so stick with it. Send me questions if you have them. Otherwise, try the homework assignment on your own. Try and do some more of these on your own. Big picture, right? If you're getting the general idea, then you are crushing it, because it's very difficult to learn from these videos. And so I'm just asking that you give me some effort, follow along, and do your best. All right? I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.